Kia ora, good evening. Yet another Invercargill store has fallen victim to what's been a string of armed robberies in the city of late. Police are asking for assistance from the public after the night and day store on Ellis Road was robbed at knife point on Saturday night.
At approximately 9:35 p.m. on November the 15th, a male's entered the store carrying a knife. He's walked to the counter, he's presented the knife to the store staff and demanded cigarettes and cash. From there the staff have complied. They've given him some cigarettes, some cash prior to him leaving, and he's left the store.
How much cash was taken?
Undisclosed at this time, still conducting inquiries as to the amount, the quantity. The cigarettes, same thing, but they're of Pall Mall brand.
Do you have any current leads?
No identification in relation to who the offender is. Forensics have been to the scene and are awaiting those results. We will be seeking advice assistance from the public to see if they can assist us in identifying the male. We're looking for a gentleman that's approximately 5'8", of thin build. He's of European descent. He was wearing a black jacket with a grey hoodie underneath and grey track pants. There's distinguishing black lines running down the length of the legs and a black logo on the left leg. The male was also wearing square-shaped sunglasses and had distinguishing green gloves on. When he's left, he's fallen over outside and dropped several items which are of interest to us. If anyone has any information about this male, whether someone's come into an unexplained quantity of cash or is trying to sell or in possession of cigarettes, specifically Pall Mall brand, we'd certainly like to hear from them, whether you contact the station or through Crime Stoppers anonymously. That would be much appreciated.
And anyone with information on the robbery can contact Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. Free trade agreement negotiations between New Zealand and South Korea are now complete. The FTA will initially eliminate tariffs on 28% of current New Zealand exports, with duties largely eliminated in 15 years. South Korea is New Zealand's sixth largest export market, with two-way trade between the countries worth about $4 billion. The agreement will slash tariffs on New Zealand exports by $65 million in the first year. Tariffs slated for elimination include a 45% rate on kiwi fruit, 22.5% charged on sheep meat, a 40% levy on beef and an 89% tariff on butter. Korean talks began in 2009 and Prime Minister John Key says it puts New Zealand into a level playing field with countries that compete heavily in the Korean market. But there's been mixed reaction to the free trade agreement from some sectors. Both the wine industry and the red meat sector are welcoming the news. However, the dairy industry is deeply disappointed with the outcome. South Korea is New Zealand deer growers' main market for deer velvet or antler. Frozen deer velvet, which makes up 3/4 of the country's $20 million antler trade to South Korea, has been left out of the agreement. Deer Industry New Zealand Chief Executive Dan Coop says hopes had been high there would be some relief to the 20% tariffs the industry pays on its products, but in the end the situation would not change for frozen antler products. Mr Coop said tariffs on dried velvet would be phased out over 15 years, but that made up only 1/4 of the industry's trade. Food-related industries boosted retail spending in the September quarter. Total retail trade sales rose 1.5% in the September quarter, following a 1.1% rise over the June quarter. Sales volumes for supermarket and grocery stores rose 1.9%, while food and beverage sales rose 3%. Looking at the long-term picture, the trends for both retail sales volumes and values have generally been rising since mid-2009. In actual terms, the value of total retail sales was $18.3 billion in the September quarter. That's up 4.1% for the same quarter last year. 80s game show enthusiasts are in for both a treat and a blast from the past. Later this month, popular 80s TV quiz show University Challenge will be returning to New Zealand screens this month and will see some of the country's brightest students from universities throughout the country going head to head. Sharon Rees spoke to executive producer and quizmaster Tom Conroy about why he revived the show.
Well, we looked across the world to find formats that had successfully been revived, and in the UK they've done exactly that with University Challenge. Huge following over there. It's been now running in its second life for some years. They make 70 plus shows, not just challenge between universities but also celebrities, so it's got great potential to have production value for some time to come.
Can you explain to me how the show works?
It's extremely simple. It's just a general knowledge quiz between the universities. They play a round robin game. All universities play each other, and then there's a semi-final and a final. The format of the program is very straightforward. They get a starter question worth 10 points. If they get that right, they get bonus questions worth 5 points each. That's a set of 3. If they interrupt, they lose 10 points. They lose 5 points, my apologies. And that's as simple as that. It's just accumulation of points, and when the buzzer goes, whoever's got the most points at the end of the day wins.
When you buy a show like this, are there rules as to how much you can change from the original?
Yes, there are. You've got to keep to pretty much the format, but you've got flexibility within that. And we've taken advantage of that to perhaps modernise it a little bit, to include the people at home. It's a very highbrow program at its peak with very intense and intellectual questions, which really isolates those folks at home from playing along. So we've tried to incorporate a little bit more sort of general day-to-day knowledge as well as specialist knowledge, so that they feel they can play along perhaps once every section, a couple of times they can answer a question and actually have a competition against the students themselves from their living room.
What was involved in choosing the students for the show?
It's all organised by the student associations at the respective universities. So we put out the invite and they go out and search for the students themselves, and they were given some guidelines of the types of questions. Some ran trials, some went hand-picked depending on the size of the university. Some had huge numbers entering, some had smaller numbers. But of course, once this gets a little bit of impetus and people see what fun it is, I think people will come to those trials prepared, ready to go, looking to compete and looking to win for the university.
And is there any hint as to who was the overall winner?
No, everyone signed a secrecy, and to my knowledge, no one has ever leaked, that's the live audience I'm talking about and the crew, of course, no one's ever leaked the winner. I think everyone respects the fact that this competition is to have a future, that betraying that confidence would compromise that, and because of the enjoyment factor and I think the success of the actual final product, nobody wants to jeopardise its long-term future.
So we're just going to have to wait and see then.
You are going to have to watch all 31 episodes and find out. And I think at the end of the day, it's the one-on-one challenges are as interesting as who wins the overall competition. But ultimately, one team is happier than the rest. But I can tell you, all 8 were very competitive, and no assumptions should be made.
Still to come on the bulletin, a wrap from the weekend, including hardy cyclists braving the elements. We take the Railcarter Bluff, plus Catlin's coastal challenges. Welcome back. Time to check out some of the weekend action around the south. It was the sound of musical instruments and talented young musicians which drew a crowd of 160 to the Lindisfarne Community Centre on Saturday.
The annual Invercargill Variety Concert saw 35 music students aged between 7 to 22 showcase what they'd been working on during the term. The students played a variety of instruments which included classical piano, flute and guitar. Music teacher and host for the evening, Anna Cannon, said the night went without a hitch despite some initial nerves from the younger students. Cannon said the concert received amazing feedback from the large crowd who enjoyed a fun-filled evening of music and laughter.
It was an unusual sight between Bluff and Invercargill on Saturday, with the train line being used for passengers rather than freight for a change. The former train station on Leven Street became a working platform once again on Saturday morning as a series of special return railcar trips to Bluff took place. The shunt was in the city as a fundraiser for the Fovo Pearls Leisure Marching Team and made 3 scenic trips over the day. The adults-only passengers came from rest homes, community houses and other groups who wouldn't normally have had the opportunity to ride the train.
I went around all the different services in Invercargill, like Community Trust, Idea Services invited their clients to come on a train because we were offered the train for the day, and we're able to offer it to them at an affordable price for people with lower incomes, because this train is a lot cheaper than the one next year that we're bringing down, because we don't have to pay for it to come down from Dunedin. So it's a lot more affordable, hence why we went round the rest homes and things like this and offered it to people that would not normally be able to go on the train. And also gives them a chance to go down that memory lane and enjoy the experience of trains that they were brought up on, a lot of them. And the ones today, just looking at their faces when I went through the carriage, it's kind of amazing that they're on the train and they never thought they'd get the opportunity. So that's what, and working in conjunction with a fundraiser for us for marching, because leisure marching goes all around New Zealand. So we're going to Tauranga next year, so it's a long way to go from Bluff. So it's a good fundraiser for us too. Something a wee bit different than the cheese rolls.
17 Southland bike riders braved the elements in order to raise money for Heart Kids Southland at the weekend. The 4th annual Milford Sound to Invercargill charity ride Sword Riders battled through a testing 320-kilometre ride, a significant increase on last year's 287. Event organiser Steve Rhodes says while the extra distance and harsh weather made it the most difficult ride for participants, everyone made it to the well-earned dinner at the end of the journey. Organisers are in the process of counting donations given to Heart Kids Southland, but the money raised from the event is currently sitting at $12,000. Gale force winds and heavy rain was not enough to keep the fitness enthusiasts away from the Catlins Coastal Challenges on Sunday.
60 entrants and their families braved the cold to compete in the annual event, which included bike riding, running and walking through the Catlins native rainforest and beach. Catlins Coastal Incorporated said the event had something for everyone and saw competitors ranging from experienced cyclists to the youngest of family members. Despite being hit with what was described as horrendous weather, Catlins Coastal said they received great feedback from participants. All proceeds went to Catlins Coastal, an organisation which teaches both tourists and locals the importance of caring for the environment throughout the Catlins.
And that's it from the news desk this Monday. Weather's up next, followed by sport. From the news team, good night.